Most people hate budgeting. It feels like a second job consisting entirely of saying no to yourself, tracking every dollar, and demanding an impossible level of daily perfection. When the friction of logging expenses gets too high, we simply stop doing it. We abandon the spreadsheets and end up drifting into a cycle of quiet, compounding financial stress. Long before she entered politics, U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren was one of the country's leading experts on bankruptcy law. She spent years studying exactly why middle-class families collapse financially. Her research revealed a surprisingly simple truth. Normal people rarely go broke because they lack intricate 12-tab financial models. They go bankrupt because they lack simple structural guardrails against debt accumulation. To solve this specific behavioral trap, she and her daughter Amelia popularized a framework known as the 50-30-20 rule. It is a lifetime money plan engineered to do two completely opposing things at the exact same time. Automatically build wealth for your future, while expressly giving you permission to spend money on happiness today. This diagram represents your starting point, your take-home pay. This is your income after taxes and payroll deductions are already removed. For our example, we'll use a $4,000 monthly income. The rule dictates that exactly 50% of this income, $2,000 in this case, is walled off specifically for your needs. Needs are the essential expenses required for basic survival and legal obligations. This includes rent or mortgage payments, basic groceries, utilities, and the minimum payments on existing debt. If your income stopped today, these are the bills you would still have to pay. But this is where the framework usually suffers its first major failure, thanks to a behavioral trap known as lifestyle inflation. It is very easy to misclassify luxury items as vital necessities. Premium streaming subscriptions, a nicer apartment than strictly necessary, or high-end grocery brands often get lumped into the needs column when they are actually discretionary choices. If you cheat the math and label those luxuries as necessities, the needs bucket expands. It begins to cannibalize the rest of your income, leaving no mathematical room for your other financial goals. A brutally honest audit of these baseline needs is the structural foundation that the rest of your financial anatomy depends on. With the baseline needs secured, we turn to the remaining half of your income. The next step is carving out a rigid 20% section, $800, exclusively for savings and accelerated debt repayment. This block holds your wealth-building tools from building an emergency reserve and a high-yield savings account to funding retirement vehicles like a traditional or Roth IRA. If your workplace offers a 401k with an employer match, funding this block up to that limit is paramount. An employer match is functionally free money that serves as part of your total compensation. A common mistake is treating this 20% as optional, or assuming you will save whatever happens to be left over. The rule only works if you secure this bucket second, immediately after your needs. The remaining 30% of the income is dedicated to your wants. In our $4,000 example, this provides a healthy $1,200 for discretionary spending. Wants encompass dining out, hobbies, and travel. You are free to spend this money as you choose, provided you do not fund this bucket using high-interest credit cards, which adds interest costs that undermine the entire budget. Maintaining this discretionary bucket is vital for sustainability. A budget stripped of all joy is a budget that most people will eventually abandon. To put this into practice, calculate your exact after-tax take-home pay and rigorously audit your fixed needs against that 50% benchmark. Once the math aligns, the key to making the system work long-term is automation. Set up automatic bank transfers to trigger the moment your paycheck lands. Route that 20% savings chunk into a separate account immediately before you have a chance to spend it on daily wants. Economic reality often requires flexibility. For those in high-cost areas or with lower starting incomes, fixed needs will often naturally exceed half of the paycheck. You can adjust the framework to fit these realities by shifting the ratios. For example, allocating 70% to needs and shrinking discretionary wants to 10%. Even as these other categories fluctuate, the core objective is to protect the 20% savings habit. This framework was built on years of legislative research into financial vulnerability. It was designed to offer a tangible defense against the systemic traps that lead to bankruptcy. Automating these mechanics removes the daily decision fatigue that causes most budgets to fail.